All right, good morning. This is an overview of edTPA Task 1, which is what is due Sunday night. And it's a little bit involved. So I will say this, it is due Sunday night, but because of the nature of this assignment and how it's going, if you need a little bit more time, just let me know. And I might be able to work with you a little bit, but we can't let it go too long. Frankly, just too much to do. So anyway, so we're going to try to get through this together. I will say, and I'll probably write this out too, that the professor who originally set this up died rather suddenly last term really, and so about I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I picked this up and she did a good job of what she had, but she was implementing this, and so I kind of halfway I see where she's going, but I'm going to make a couple of things that are going to help you out. There are changes on the fly. Anyway, so all that to say, we're in the SBA Task 1, so edTPA Special Ed Task 1. There's only 3 documents in here, and the others will help you, but these are the 3 that you need. And I am going to point out another document that, had this been set up completely correctly last quarter, you would have had more work to do, and it's the right thing to do. However, that said, it's okay. Just go with what we have now. Just be aware that when you hit student teacher, you're going to have to do the other one, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, but you don't have to fill it out for me. So you have the instructions task, the instructions document. You have the actual template you're going to use, and then you have a sample template, which is very helpful. So let's look at what these are. So first off, we have the instructions, which are here. And in the instructions, it says basically 4-5-25, this is what you're supposed to do. So you're supposed to select a learner. Now, for this class, I know some of you are not in the classroom. So therefore, as it is, you can use a case study. And you can use Robert, Morgan, or Michael, one of the 3 case studies that are provided in the course for the IEP and the transition plan and all that stuff. So you can use that. If you want to use your real student, awesome, go for it. If you want to use the case study, that's fine. The case study, you have to be a little creative with some of the baseline stuff, but otherwise it's going to work for you. So obviously, read the confidentiality requirement there. So then it says, provide context on the special education context for learning information template. Well, really, what is talking about there is here. It's actually in the IPIR, which is the document that's our standard lesson planning document. So it's the part A, and if you take a look at it, it's pretty straightforward. Elementary school, city, this is the sample, so it shows you what you would theoretically write in here. Virginia Standards of Learning for what kinds of things the district has for requirements and expectations for instruction. So anyway, so you kind of go down through it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Ability grouping, so you're going to describe the class a little bit, other resources that are available for the class, and then you're going to talk about the class itself. This is kind of our diversity statement differentiation guide and number of students. And then you have the split in here. Obviously, if you're working with a single student, that information should be put in here. But if the single student is within the context of a larger classroom, whether self-contained, 8 to 15 students, or a general education classroom inclusion, which could be 25 students, if you would want to describe that. And so you want to talk about what kinds of students are in the classroom with the individual student is what that becomes. If you don't know what 504 is, I'm glad to talk to you about that, but broadly speaking, it's students with unique needs that do not necessarily qualify for an IEP, but need modifications as part of another set of laws outside of IDEA. Anyway, so we're in daily lesson plan template. This is part B. This is the one that is actually the lesson plan itself, and this is what you're going to have to replicate at least 2 more times. The guide for this is that you have to have 3 to 5 instructional plans that are part of a learning segment. And the learning segment really is a mini unit. So you're going to have 3 plans together. This is where this could be very overwhelming, and this is why I say if you need more time, you just let me know and we'll figure this out. Life will be okay. I'll be on your side. I'm going to write this down too. Okay, so you fill in this information, which should be pretty straightforward. Resources, you can provide the list of resources you're using. And then here are the big questions that get asked. What are the learning goals? And you have a broad focus of what's being done. You have the rationale for it. And then you have some prior knowledge, prior skills, and prior academic language that are necessary. This academic language can be the most confusing part of this whole thing in my mind because of the way it's using terminology. What it's really saying is in the case of this particular lesson, which is on math and symmetry, is what it's about, and it has some information about what that is. But in order for students to be successful in that, they have to understand the phrases and terms equivalent and lines of symmetry. That's the academic language embedded in the task itself. So the content, the discipline has certain language associated for the student to be successful, and you have to make sure that that's being included. You're recognizing it up front. That way you're not excluding anybody from the task. All right, so then we have content standards. Where is it coming from? Virginia Standards of Learning. Now, if you're using a student who has a more significant disability, and in the case of Virginia, they would not be on the SOLs if they could not participate in that level of cognitive activity. So instead, what you would do is you would identify the ASOLs, or the aligned standards where appropriate. That's for functional academics, functional math, functional reading, functional writing, and even social studies and science. If it's communication or life skills, you would just put not applicable. And that may be true for both state and national. So you just need to make this work for your situation. But if it's a functional skill that's not academic, i.e. how to make a new friend, how to do laundry, how to whatever, then that particular skill set you do not need to have a standard for. I should also mention that I know there's a little bit of confusion because the original lesson plan assignment for this course was written for you have to have an academic, and then you have to have a functional, and you have to have a certain number of each one, and so forth. That's, in fact, I'll be honest, I wrote this course years ago. It's been changed multiple times since, but that's the language I used because I wanted to make sure you had access to multiple types of skills. The problem with that is, in this case, is edTPA is really just one big swipe at it, and you're putting all those together. So I don't have a problem with you doing functional academics. I would also recommend to you, since this class really lends itself, if you have opportunity in your real situation, or if you want to imagine it in your case situation, that it might be useful to go through the process of doing a functional life skill, daily living skill, community living skill, or vocational skill that's not necessarily considered to be academic. So that's where it would be social skills, communication, and so forth. All right, then we have, going down from there, we have learning objectives, we have learning target, and what I love about this, I actually like this, good job edTPA, is it's the student statement. I can identify shapes that are symmetrical. So you're kind of making the statement a personal statement for students, and that's what you're shooting for, the students to be able to do that. Here's your language section. So you're identifying what the language demands are for this particular case. In this case, talking about symmetry and understanding what that is, and then also providing formal definitions of it, and then even the vocabulary that they're going to need to be able to use. That's in there. Then the lesson plan itself. Character education, we're here at Liberty, or unabashedly evangelical, so you're adding in a biblical reference for it, and you can kind of see what this example looks like. Keep it simple, my friends. No reason to go complicated. TCAs. There actually are two parts of the TCAs. You can see the B, which is the content competency, and A, which is the basic teaching competency, or the overall. So you're going to make short statements. Keep them short, even shorter than this if you want, of how that is being addressed within your lesson plan. You can kind of see it in there. And then in the case of math, students are going to be learning skill in the area of geometry. They must learn to see patterns and recognize symmetry. That's addressing the C1 and C2 in the content competencies. All right, going down, how will you know the student's progress towards learning objective? We got the diagnostic, the formative, and summative assessment. Diagnostic happens at the beginning, formative happens throughout, can be informal, and then summative, which actually could also be informal, but is the official assessment that happens at the end. And so you can kind of see what each one of these does. Remember that your diagnostic assessment is really to figure out a couple of things. It's possible to figure out if they're ready to do the task. You may even be a diagnostic on whether they know the language in order to be able to access this learning for the academic language requirement above. But it also, the diagnostic could be, are they ready to proceed with this because of the pre-skills? Are they, what do they already know about this task, so that you can make sure that you kind of focus it on the skills that they don't know yet. So you basically change your way you're going to instruct in order to meet their needs. That makes sense, right? So it's really asking a lot of questions in there, and it could be. So then we have the level of student performance, and you're identifying that up front. And then we have pretty standard versions of the lesson plan. And we have a very simple, what they call a hook or a launch, and what we usually call an anticipatory set as part of the Madeline Hunter method. Then we have instruction, modeling, guided practice, and independent practice. These are the procedures. These are the instructional strategies that are being implemented in the lesson. So this is the basis of the lesson. The end is how you're going to tie it all back together again and help the student be able to see it from a retention point of view. I like to use closure a lot to connect it to the big picture so they understand where this falls in the line of what they're learning. And so in many ways, this could say, remember how we did so-and-so last week, this is what we did this week, and this is what we're getting ready to do. And then we have the differentiation. And this is where your student might receive unique instructional strategies or modifications, accommodations to help them along the way. And you got that in there. I love this too. Nice job, edTPA. The what ifs. This is planning for the best you can. What if students finish early? They could do that. Or what if students cannot do something? What are you going to do? And then finally, where did you got your ideas and information from? The other thing to note, and this is important, is that in your lesson planning, you should have all the materials included. So if you refer to a PowerPoint, I want to see it. If you're identifying a YouTube video, I want to see a link to it. So you have to be able to say, don't just say, we're going to watch a video on Constitution. You have to identify what that is. So make sure that that's in there. Now, so this is where it gets hard. As I mentioned, just to make sure this is clear, you have to have 3 of these bad boys. And I'm going to write this out to make sure it's clear. Part B planning requires 3. So this gets done 3 times total. So you're really doing this. So I don't need to see an extremely extensive lesson, but they should be 3 instructional pieces connected together is really what you're looking at. Okay? So there's that one. Now, all of that is in there. This instructional set here are telling you what to do. There's 3 to 5 consecutive lessons, write the plans, talk about the assessment procedures. Each lesson must be no more than 4 pages in length, broadly speaking, so they're short, and respond to the commentary prompts. This is the one you do not have to do from me because they didn't put it in live text. And in my mind right now, if it's not in live text, you're not doing it. So you're getting off the hook on this. But let me show you what it looks like so you're familiar with it for student teaching. This commentary document is really just kind of an overall reflection document. By the way, if you want to do it, I will look at it. I'm fine with that, but I'm not requiring it. So in here, we have the academic alternative and early childhood standards the learning goals, and underneath it is the lesson plan. So these get copied right from your lesson planning document. And then each one of these questions are really kind of almost copy and paste from the lesson plan. So when you do this in student teaching, you're basically pulling the information and putting it in here as almost a reflection. You're basically commenting on how you developed your instructional plan. That's what it is. So it's like 3.5 pages, something like that, a bit over 3 pages. It says no more than 12 pages spaced. If you had more time, if this was part of live text, it was in there, and it was clearer, then I would make you do it. But we're not. It's just, it wasn't clear that you had to do this, so I'm not going to make you do it. Just be aware that it's there. Submit everything into live text is where you put it all. Okay, so if you go back to live text, again, you have your instruction document, follow that through, your lesson planning template, which is what you're going to fill out, and then here's your sample document, which is what we just went through and looked at together. Okay, hopefully this helps you with the first task. Now, next week, I'm going to actually probably here in the next day, if I can, I'm going to create one for the third task because it also is a little weighty. And I saw it on the schedule, it's due next week. So I'm going to do what I can to try to prepare you for that one early too. But I'm going to be a little fluid with this just because I know that this is pretty overwhelming. It's big, it's confusing, and even some of the instructions in Blackboard are not matching 100% with what's going on in live text. And so we're cleaning this stuff up, but it's going to take a little bit of time to do that. All right, thanks for your patience, folks. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to get right back to you.